Just one third down conversion tonight. Make it two on a big run from Avery Johnson all the way to the end zone. How about that?
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
And now Ollie Gordon breaks the tackle. Ollie Gordon with running room. Inside the 10. House call. 46 yards for OG2.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Here's Brooks, getting the edge. Brooks. Touchdown, Texas Tech.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
On second down, Bowman locks this one into coverage, and he's picked again. Guess who? Damari Henderson with his second interception and his third takeaway today.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
There goes Green, scrambling, and that speed inside the 10, and he'll go all the way. Touchdown! Nobody ever got him.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Lichtenberg trying to throw his first pass, going downfield. Oh my goodness! What an interception! Kobe Bryant. Da-da-da, da-da-da.
Now here's David Smoke and Craig Smoke.
Well, good afternoon. I tell you what, this part of Waco has had a couple of 2 to 5 power outages. We had one earlier today at about 12:45 or so, came back on, and then about 2:45, 2:30 or so, had another power outage. But here we are. Spread the word. We're on the air. We have to make a little, catch up a little bit. We will have a couple, 2 or 3 headlines. And then Pat Smith from, he covers the SEC, WJOX in Birmingham. He was at that game last night at Rickwood Field that was so nostalgic and so amazing. And I don't know if you heard the Reggie Jackson interview about what he went through as a member back in the day. You need to Google that. It was phenomenal. Absolutely as transparent and phenomenal as you could possibly be. Of course, there's a guy my age, Reggie Jackson, right in my wheelhouse, just like many other of the great names as well. Garrett Ross is here. Emery Winter will be working on 365 Sports tonight. Intern James is also out there doing his thing. I hope he was able to get up a couple of notes about the fact that we had the power outage. Now, if we disappear, you'll know why. But it's right here, 365 Sports tonight. First of all, we already got a super chat. Is that right?
Yeah, Saxman, $4.99.
Thank you for $4.99. Spread the word. Go tell others you know that usually watch us if they said, oh, they're not up. But usually there's an alert that we're up, and here we are on 365 Sports. So how about this doozy? What in the world's going on at Houston? Chris Pezman is out. Joseph Duarte with the pretty ominous text or tweet last night. Joseph Duarte saying that Chris Pezman is out as athletic director. Now, I talked to a couple of people today that cover Houston. It was not a great time when we're on this afternoon for them to come on the air. But here's part of what he said. He's out as AD. We had Chris Pezman on 3 to 5 times since back when the discussion about the 2021 season of how the Big 12 would react. Source telling the Houston Chronicle, Duarte, that top levels of the University of Houston administration had become frustrated with AD Pezman's inability to make significant progress to increase revenue through sponsorships, fundraising, and it was a consensus decision to make the change. Now, Duarte also saying that this completely caught Pezman off guard. He was not expecting this decision or was not expecting to be released, and I'm not sure if that means that he didn't have any kind of heads up. Sounds like he didn't. And so there we are with Chris Pezman, friend of the show. Wish him the best. I'm not sure. Houston right now has had some turmoil at the top of the AD department. They will now start the search, a nationwide search, as their president said, to find the replacement for Chris Pezman. Meanwhile, the Utah AD, now a part of the Big 12, or will be officially on July the 1st, has been added to the U.S. Olympic Committee's 2028 committee for a couple of different things. One, Mark Harlan has been appointed to the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee's Collegiate Advisory Council, a 6-year term. Nice deal for Mark Harlan, and he now will have that on top of what he's doing for Utah as they celebrate on July the 1st the entry into the Big 12. And then you hear about there's no money, all this $22 million revenue, this salary cap, whatever you want to call it, and yet Oklahoma today has given Brent Venables a new contract. He's 14-10 in his 2 years at Oklahoma, but he gets a new deal. And here it is, Oklahoma, 6-year deal, extends him by 2 years out into the SEC entry. Oklahoma has ESPN's number 7 recruiting class. Okay, this is interesting because, the departments all go, we don't have any money. How are we going to do this? And yet Brent Venables is 14-10. Now, listen, I'm not saying OU's doing something wrong here. Only they will have to figure that out. But here's the Eli Letterman added this. And, by the way, Pat Smith is about to join us. He was at that, again, game last night at Rickwood Field, and also thoughts on the SEC. The deal approved by the Oklahoma Board of Regents is contracted in Norman through 2029 on a new deal worth just over $46 million. Venables will earn $7.225 million before his salary climbs to $7.625 to eventually $7.925. And then I didn't get a chance to get it or peel it off because we were trying to get ourselves set for the show and in between the power outage. But it even could be about $8.1 million based on some other parts of his contract. So there we are with that. A&M. The Mike Elko contract, the football coach at Texas A&M, who is, by the way, they're in the College World Series best of 3 that starts tomorrow up in Omaha. He has, I guess, an agreement in his contract that based on the landscape of college sports, A&M and Mike Elko could renegotiate his deal. That clause is included in a 6-year, $42 million contract that Elko recently signed with Texas A&M. If the financial model for college athletics dramatically changes, when I first read that, I don't know about you, Garrett, or anyone else, when I first read that, I'm like, okay, can they downsize his contract? Because if they're going to have to put more money elsewhere, is there an agreement, and he knew about it, that they might have to possibly change what they're paying him? I can't imagine his agent would ever agree to something like that.
No, but I also think at this point, coaches are starting to see the writing on the wall, and I think you're going to see more coaches put things in place like this where they can restructure their contract or maybe put a clause in my contract saying out of whatever X million I'm getting paid, I would like to donate or refer $100,000, $200,000 into an NIL budget or something like that. I think you're going to see more of that kind of approach with these going forward. And kind of like with the Chris Pezman thing, like that's real unique because this is a guy who played there. I mean, he lettered at Houston, and I also think that's kind of like a change in the tide where we're seeing these admin hires like your Mark, right? Like they're going out and getting these business guys. I wonder if more of the schools, or you're going to see a shift from a traditional approach to hire an athletic director to more of a finance type mindset to come in to try to counterbalance, especially in some of these smaller conferences where you're so far behind from a budget standpoint compared to like the Big Ten or the SEC.
It's all about money.
It's all about money now.
Even if you have the money, even if you're one of the alphas, you still are looking to find more ways to get the money. So those are some of the stories. But one note, former A&M running back and great Darren Lewis, the all-time leading rusher in Texas A&M history, he passed away. Saw that note earlier today from Brent Zerneman, who covers A&M for the Houston Chronicle. I got a chance to interview him a couple of different times. A very nice, quiet, humble player, but he passed away. He was the all-time leading rusher for Texas A&M. And that is a sad note for Aggies everywhere and also for college football fans. All right, let's go ahead. Let's get Pat Smith on now, if it's okay. Pat Smith will join us from three-man front, WJOX in Birmingham, and then we'll try to catch up with both Pat Smith and Grayson Grundhafer coming up in just a moment. Also, Rob Gray covers Iowa State for CycloneFanatic.com. He'll join us today at 4:25. Mark Daniels, voice of UCF, at 5. And also, Mitch Thompson from Baylor University, their baseball coach, will join us at around 5:30 today. And before we get to Pat Smith, Bob Simpson, longtime alum and donor of Baylor University, who has still been doing some things, I've been told mainly with men's basketball, a $10 million a donation, or I guess you could say gift to Baylor University that was described as a men's basketball and baseball NIL type of gift. We'll see how that works out. Bob has been kind of behind the scenes. He's done something with a few other schools. I would not be honest if I didn't say that after the change of football coaches in 2016 with Art Briles and company, he really just kind of just said, okay, and has not been as involved. That doesn't mean publicly. He might have been still doing things for Baylor University. But remember, he gave TCU a big gift for Kaz Kazadi, the strength and conditioning coach. So to me, when I saw this note, whether it's $2 million, $10 million, or whatever million, I thought it was great because Bob Simpson, for the most part, and Baylor could possibly go, no, you need to correct that, and I will, has been pretty much quiet. So Mitch Thompson will join us today on the College Baseball World Series Finals, the series up in Omaha, and also the gift involving Bob Thompson of $10 million. Whatever the number might be to baseball or men's basketball, $10 million overall. Pat Smith joins us, great friend of the show, three-man front, WJOX, a power station in Birmingham. And Pat, thank you. We normally have you on to discuss college football, but let's start with this. You actually, I saw the note, you were at Rickwood Field last night. Can you try to describe all of what you saw and all of what you experienced last night in Birmingham?
Always a pleasure to be on, guys. First off, it was one of the most electric things I've ever been a part of. I've been blessed to cover national championship games. I've been to historic games of the Iron Bowl between Alabama and Auburn around the Southeastern Conference. And I'll tell you, being someone that's lived in Birmingham now for over 40 years, this was a magical night. And being able to go back to Rickwood Field, a ballpark that's been around for, since 1910, and to have a Major League Baseball game. The Cardinals came here in 1954 and played the first integrated game in Birmingham against the Chicago White Sox because the location of Birmingham, basically teams in which they would go to spring training and they would come north getting ready to start the season, they would stop off in Birmingham and they'd play these barnstorming tours. And so, of course, the Negro Leagues were very popular here in Birmingham because that's where Willie Mays got his start. So to see the ballpark come alive with a real live Major League Baseball game and them honoring Willie Mays and the untimely death of him earlier this week, it was off the charts. On a scale of 1 to 10, it was a 12. It was goosebumps all the way around. It was just a very, very special night.
How much was it, how surreal was it that Mays released that statement earlier in the week about not being able to get around, and then like the next day or two, the note is that he has passed away. And I remember the video, I think, from a couple of nights ago when they announced it at a Birmingham crowd. You could just hear this just groan of, oh, my God. Mm-hmm. How much did that weigh on last night? I know they still celebrated as they should, but how difficult was that?
It was very difficult. I was actually there on Tuesday night. The Birmingham Barons, the AA franchise of the Chicago White Sox, they played the Montgomery Biscuits, a minor league franchise, the Milwaukee Brewers, and they had to turn back the clock game. And that night, when it was announced inside Rickwood Field, not that we were absolutely shocked at the news. Willie Mays had been in bad health, and he was 93 years old, but it was just the fact that this whole week was going to be celebrating not only him and what he meant to the city of Birmingham and that field, but to the Negro Leagues and everyone else involved. And so having that announcement and then seeing the crowd start giving a standing ovation and tipping their caps and chanting Willie, Willie, it just meant that the rest of the week was going to be a little bit more reverent. We knew that it was going to be a celebration. I had Michael Mays, his son, he was on my program last week kind of previewing what was going on, because at that time there was still an outside shot of Willie actually coming back to Birmingham. But travel had become a problem the last couple of years with his health, and the shock not only to the Mays family but to the old baseball world when they got the news on Tuesday that he had passed away.
Pat Smith was with us on 365 Sports. The first pitch last night, 99-year-old. All of the history that was there. Pat, did you get a chance to actually listen to the Reggie Jackson interview on Fox Sports last night?
I did.
Well,
I did.
I hope everybody, if they can, Google it or whatever, can listen to it. And there's a couple of versions that have been bleeped out, which to me, what he said did not bother me. He was being absolutely transparent about what he dealt with back in the day. I thought that was incredibly powerful.
It really was. And again, for someone that has spent my adult life in Birmingham, Alabama, it does not take a historian to understand that this city has had a troubled past when it comes to race relations. I think we've come very, very far. There's still work to be done. But what Reggie Jackson, unfortunately, what he said was very true to a lot of southern cities in which not only baseball players, but football players. It took a long time before the SEC integrated when it came to college football. So it was a very powerful and moving statement that Reggie Jackson had to say last night. But I will tell you this, that this town has come a long way. Still a lot of work to be done, not only here but other places around the country. But we made a huge step forward in recognizing certain issues and trying to get those issues fixed. And that's why the community as a whole was so, celebratory this week of the Negro Leagues and everything that the Birmingham Black Barons did in the past and other franchises around, and what Major League Baseball has done to recognize the records of Josh Gibson and Satchel Paige and so many others that played in the Negro League. So it was a very powerful and moving statement by Reggie last night for sure.
Well, I'm glad you were there. I saw that on your timeline. Obviously, I follow what you do, and then you have your own show, and then what you do to cover the SEC, and wanted to kind of share some of those thoughts. On a scale of 1 to 10, you said it was a 12?
Yeah, absolutely. It was unbelievable. Just the fact that, Major League Baseball announces that they're going to do this. And I've been blessed because I was able at a very young age to go watch Birmingham Barons baseball minor league games back in the 80s before they moved to the suburbs. And, of course, that stadium has been used by smaller colleges. Inner city schools have played there. But it's basically it's a volunteer organization that pretty much ran it. It's an open park. It's on the National Historical Register. I mean, it's anybody can come there and just take a tour and see the history. But when they announced that they were going to come there, the number one thing that we were worried about, we knew that Major League Baseball was going to come in and make it a world class. They had to redo the dugout. They had to do things there was not a drainage system. There was a huge crest on the field. Literally, you could be in the first base dugout and you couldn't see the third base coach on the other side of the field because the field had such a high crest. So there was things that Major League Baseball had to do, but they did all that and they didn't touch the integrity or the architecture or the history of that ballpark. And that was what's so special moving forward. I think Major League Baseball will definitely come back here. I think having a game of this magnitude to celebrate the Negro Leagues is something that's very important to Major League Baseball, and it should be. And I think moving forward, Birmingham will probably be on a list of probably 5 to 10 venues around America that you will see have these type of Field of Dreams game that obviously celebrates the life and times of the Negro baseball players.
The SEC Media Days is about a month away, a little bit less than that, up in Dallas at the Omni Hotel. It's a great, great place to be, by the way. What is the storyline? Is it Texas OU entering? Is it Kalen DeBoer, Alabama? What is the storyline or two when you get there and they start that in Dallas?
Well, it's definitely going to be the fact that Kalen DeBoer is taking over for Nick Saban. That is going to be the huge story. But Texas is going to be probably number 2 when we rank everybody and vote 1 through 16. We're done with division, so it's 1 through 16 this year. Definitely Georgia's going to be the overwhelming favorite to win the league. But then it gets interesting because you got Texas. There's a lot of pressure, obviously, them coming into the SEC. But then that 3rd, 4th, and 5th spot, you look at Lane Kiffin, look at what Ole Miss, the easy schedule they've got in conference play. He's been the transfer portal king. They're going to be heavily favored. Kalen DeBoer's got an excellent roster, and what he's going to be able to do offensively, I think Alabama is going to be on that next tier of teams. And let's not forget about Missouri. They've got a lot of guys coming back. That's going to be one of those picks around the Southeastern Conference that folks are going to enjoy. So, yes, Texas, Oklahoma coming to the league's big story. Obviously, Brent Venables getting the big extension today, which is kind of a head-scratcher in my opinion. But for the most part, I think you're going to be talking about what 4 teams most likely will be in the conversation for the expanded college football playoff.
All right. Do you think there'll be more than 4?
I think there will be more than 4 in the conversation. I think when we're all said and done and we're talking about this in December, I think the SEC gets at least 4 teams in. Would not be shocked if it was 5, depending on how certain things happen from the non-conference schedule.
So we had this discussion here in the Big 12 with the additions of Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and Arizona State. That with Texas and OU out, and last year I had Texas winning. I did not have TCU the year before, and I didn't have Baylor the year before that when they had that great run and beat Ole Miss in a bowl game. But we were trying to ask, okay, how many people, let's say 100 members of the media, and it may not even be that much, might be more, how many will have Utah or Kansas State in some way 1 and 2? And we've even had guests on that said one of them had Utah 5, one had K-State 3. But for the most part, we feel like that most everybody will probably have them 1 and 2 in some way. Will it be Georgia, Texas 1-2 for the most part as far as the majority of those who vote in the SEC?
I believe so, yes. And like I said, I think with what Texas has coming back, especially in that quarterback room, the things and the people that he has brought in from the portal, and obviously a very good recruiting class, I definitely think it'll be Kirby Smart will be 1. You'll have Sarkisian and the Horns number 2. And then at that point in time, I don't know if it will be because of muscle memory. You're so used to putting Alabama up that high. I'm telling you, they've got a really, really good roster. They lost some, but what Kalen DeBoer has been able to fill the holes in, especially in the portal, Alabama's going to be very talented. They're going to be in that conversation. And as I mentioned, if you look at Ole Miss's schedule, it's very, very easy, folks. And they don't play Alabama. They don't play Auburn. They've got Georgia at home. The schedule works out really nice for Lane Kiffin. They're going to be 5-0 as the season starts. And so the Rebels are going to be immediately in the conversation. So, but to answer your question with a long answer, no question, I think it's going to be 1 Georgia, 2 Texas.
So Missouri had a great run last year. There's always somebody in any conference, even the Big Ten or whoever, that makes a run that nobody expects. Missouri, I'm not sure if no one expected it, but they were really, really good. I think, like, really good. Ole Miss obviously was really good. Is there somebody in the middle of the pack that maybe is getting overlooked in your opinion?
Well, you know, it's interesting. You must be listening to our show sometimes because that's one of the conversations that we have. We talk about that next tier of teams. And I'm going to make some of your listeners happy when we say this. We here in Birmingham, the home of the SEC office, we believe Texas A&M. We believe having Jimbo gone, having Elko come in there, having a quarterback return, we believe Texas A&M could be that under-the-radar type team, and based on what they have coming back and kind of a new coaching era, so to speak. So we think A&M could be that Missouri team this year that could surprise someone that maybe not a lot of people are thinking about, or this is going to be a rebuild, or it's going to take a few years for Mike Elko. Let's not forget, Mike Elko knows that program. He knows what he's doing, and he will get these players to respond. So I think the Aggies could be that surprise team, in my opinion.
Because there's the expectations. I'm not saying they don't have high expectations when they spend the amount of money they do. Do you feel like it ate them up the last couple of years prior to Jimbo being fired last year during the season?
I think so. And listen, when you have a recruiting class that comes in with those type of accolades, you know, we've seen it here in the state of Alabama because every year it's usually they're number 1 or number 2, and I'm talking about Alabama. So there's always that pressure that's built up because of signing day. And then when you have a little back and forth you had with the GOAT, with Nick Saban, that just elevated it even more because you're bragging about, you know, paying these guys and getting them and having the number 1 class, but then you don't deliver on the field. And then you bring in Petrino as your offensive coordinator. It was just a disaster after disaster from a PR standpoint for Jimbo, and he just couldn't back it up on the field. So, yeah, I think the pressure got to him, but now the slate is clean, and a lot of people – Jimbo Fisher was an excellent, and still is, in my opinion, excellent offensive coordinator. I just don't think he's a very good CEO, and as we both know, that's what you have to have now to be successful in college football. And I think Mike Elko, believe it or not, in my opinion, will be a better CEO of that football program and get them in a better position for long-term winning.
how much, again, an SEC, the one thing they do is they win. Sometimes they have more teams, so the odds are better. But here we have Tennessee and A&M in the baseball championship series. And
amazing.
I mean, both of them have been really good. Tennessee got a break maybe in that first game with Florida State. That's debatable, but most likely they did.
Yeah.
But A&M has been, ever since really the first game at their place when they played Texas, they trailed most of the game, came back and won it. It was dicey to at least win that game, and then Texas had to go back through the bracket. They have been pretty dominant too, and both of these teams have been very much high up on the food chain. Your thoughts about those two starting tomorrow?
Oh, listen, seeing both of them in Birmingham up close at the SEC baseball tournament, listen, these are the two class programs this year in college baseball. It's amazing to think that one of those two teams will win their first ever national championship when it comes to baseball. I am just so impressed. Listen, I was impressed when Schlossnagle came over from TCU, and to think that TCU only had 2 total College World Series wins before he got to College Station. They've had 3 alone this year. They're undefeated in the College World Series baseball tournament. So listen, it would not shock me in the least if A&M walks away with the title. Tennessee's been the most solid team for the majority of the year. But listen, the SEC has been so dominant, as you just mentioned. Think about this. The SEC has claimed 9 national titles by 6 different schools since 2009. And since both of these schools have never won the national championship, that's now going to be 10 national titles by 7 different teams since 2009. Just an incredible run by the Southeastern Conference, and having those 2 teams play for the national championship is going to be very special this weekend.
Well, that's the one thing. People can complain that maybe they have a bubble when a team that's 3-2 beats a team that's 5-0. They move all the way up to like 16. The 5-0 team doesn't drop. But the one thing, and I've said this about the Big 12, because there's really no alpha names or images or brands, no matter what anyone may think about what they have to win the non-conference games when they have them, whether it's against Arkansas or whether against anybody, and then someone's going to have to win a playoff game. Like TCU did, but then again, it was almost like, but because of what happened with Georgia, they're going to have to do that. Don't you think, Pat, to have that chance to like, okay, wait a minute, we need more than just our automatic qualifier to make the team or make the tournament?
There's no doubt about that, and that's the one thing you have to say that SEC baseball has done a very, very good job with. I mean, they in mid-season, when you're playing the Tuesday night non-conference game, they're going out of the comfort zone because they understand that iron sharpens iron, and they're going to do that. They also know that this is the hotbed, the Deep South, even in your part of the world, just incredible athletes and baseball players in the state of Texas. So it goes without saying that these guys are built for this, especially when you get to tournament baseball, deep pitching staffs. And both teams, both Tennessee and A&M, very fortunate to be in that winner's bracket because, as we saw, Florida went on a nice run. But, man, once you get to that loser's bracket and your pitching just gets absolutely diluted big time, it is so tough to try to win 2 out of 3. But it's going to be a lot of fun, in my opinion. The 2 best teams in the league the majority of the year, I know Arkansas was kind of sandwiched in between Texas A&M and Tennessee. But in my opinion, these are the 2 best, and whoever walks away, they deserve it because they're going to be one heck of a baseball team.
Thank you, man. Pat, you do a great job, and we appreciate it when you're on with us. And I know I've been on with you a couple of different times. Keep it up. Enjoy a little bit of time between now and media days, and then all hell breaks loose in a good way. Thanks for your time.
Always my pleasure. Y'all have a good weekend.
You too. Pat Smith, who does a great job. 3-man front, covers the SEC. He's at WJOX, which is a full throttle powerhouse in Birmingham, Alabama. We'll have Grayson Grundy for here in just a moment. For those of you who have joined us, and I can see more and more people coming on, we had a power outage at about 12-something, came back up, then around maybe 2:15 or so, I think it was, went back out. We were supposed to get power no earlier than 4. We got it about 3:20, so we're on the air. You have not missed any of the guests. We also have other guests as we go throughout the show. But if you all of a sudden just like pop, we're gone, then you'll know why. But right now, everything seems to be going pretty well. There are like 1,500 people, I think, Garrett, you told me.
1,500.
That were without power for a little bit. And it didn't make any sense because I know it's hot. There's no bad weather. So we are back on, and glad that you are with us. Grayson Grundhafer, 365 Sports, recruiting coordinator, literally, and then also football analyst, joins us on 365 Sports. Grayson, thank you very much for your time. So this is that time of the year where you have people coming in, people who are still interested. Can Baylor come out of this weekend with anybody new committed to 2025?
I think there's a really good chance that they're going to leave this weekend with, another commit potentially. I will also say I'm anticipating that they're going to get a commitment while we're actually talking, because I think that news will probably drop around 4. So we might be able to talk about that here coming up. But yeah, Baylor's done a really good job so far during these official visits. They're up to 10 total commits right now. I'm expecting them to get closer to 15, 16. I think when we initially talked, I was saying, if they could get 10 commits, kind of during this stretch, and that means kind of the beginning of July, that first week in July, if they can have 10 from the beginning of June till that time, that would be a heck of a run. And I know they lost a commitment from Cash Courtney, so that number's come down a little bit, but I still think if they can get into that 15 to 17 range of total commits going into the month a little bit later in July, I think they'll be in a great spot. So right now they're doing really good, and I anticipate they're going to have some more momentum over the next couple of weeks.
All right, did you say there might be somebody like in the next 5 or 10 minutes that you might have a commitment?
Yeah, I think Baylor should begin the commitment here in the next 5 minutes. So we'll talk about that if indeed it does happen while we're talking. But like I said, there's momentum going on here, and they've had a lot of official visitors who are still yet to make, decisions. And it's kind of been interesting. A lot of guys kind of during this time period have decided to, kind of have a deadline, right? So they have a date that they're going to make a decision. And most guys have kind of stuck to that. And they've wanted to take their other official visits and then wanted to commit on that specific date. So I think that's why you're seeing more guys, coming off the official visit, not necessarily committing right after the weekend, but instead kind of waiting till the end of June and early July to make that official decision.
Is the Shadow Creek wide receiver Ashton Jones the class of those who are visiting this weekend?
So he's committed. So he's definitely, I think, the one that, a lot of people are going to be, talking about, because he is actually the longest commit in the class now, because they've had so much, kind of movement there. But I would say, they got a couple of really interesting guys. They have 3 offensive linemen who are visiting, and that's an area where they're just completely depleted right now as far as in this class. They don't have a single commit on the offensive line. Big reason for that is, over the past 6 months, they've had 3 offensive line coaches. So they've really had to kind of revamp things there. So that's been a focus. But I think if you're kind of looking for the headliner, I'd probably say that's probably Dekaney wide receiver Tanu Kynes. He's a national 4-star recruit. Took official visits to Texas, Notre Dame, USC, and now Baylor. I think that's pretty much his top 4. And he's nearing his decision here at the beginning of July as well. I think it'll be the 2nd or the 3rd when he makes his decision. And then also kind of a sneaky one is Oaks Christian tight end Stevie Amar. You might be familiar with Oaks Christian because that's actually where Baylor quarterback Nate Bennett was from. So they were teammates last year when Stevie Amar kind of had his breakout season, and then Baylor kind of went back to the well and offered him in the spring and have been recruiting him as the tight end for this class. They really want him to be that guy. A very versatile athlete, a really good pass catcher, and one of those guys that did not fit in the old offense, but is a perfect fit in this spread offense as kind of a slot wide receiver, tight end hybrid type.
All right, I saw where Demetrius Dean of Jasper is on this weekend. I still believe being a part of the visit this weekend. He's committed to the University of Houston. Now, Grayson, I know that any fan base remembers those who got away, that were committed to them, and there's always going to be that. And Baylor has their fair share, maybe in some cases quite a bit. How often do they ever flip somebody else?
Yeah, it happens. He's actually one that is still kind of a wait and see on if he'll actually end up on campus this weekend. He's one that I've mentioned a couple times. He's been scheduled to visit for a while, but we'll see if it actually happens. Because like you said, he committed to Houston right after his visit. He's been in talks with the Baylor staff for a while now. but it's still wait and see. I haven't seen that he's gotten to campus quite yet, so it's one of those things where we're just waiting and see what happens. Baylor's done a pretty good job. They flipped some guys here and there. I would say they've probably, lost more of those flips than they've won in recent years, especially kind of those high-profile ones when you're talking about Adam Schobel and Austin Novosad. Those are kind of ones that stand out. But they have flipped some guys. When you look at Mason Dorsett, kind of being a big one in the previous class. So, yeah, they've had their fair share of moments as well.
All right, so Jacoby Walter and Yves Missy will be drafted most likely early next week. And Jacoby's and actually Yves, both they're in the green room. It looks to me as if Jacoby was kind of at a certain number when they first came out with a lot of the projections. There's different people that do that. But that he seems to have moved up a tick or 3 or 4. Is that right?
That's what I've been hearing. I actually, have a contact in San Antonio who, obviously is covering the draft really extensively. And the big thing for him is kind of, the Spurs, right? He follows the Spurs, but the Spurs have 2 top 8 picks. And so for that reason, I do trust a lot of what he's hearing. And actually, he made a tweet yesterday mentioning that Jacoby Walter could be a surprise top 5 pick. And I was shocked by that because I truly don't think he's going to go that high. But if you look at it, he's had workouts with the Spurs and the Pistons, who are both in the top 5. I think he's probably going to slide to somewhere between 10 to 14. But I will say there appears to be some momentum there. And then as far as Yves Missy goes, I think there's an outside chance that he gets drafted in the lottery. It's possible, especially after what, Derek Lively just did for the Mavs and how a guy like that can change things for you. But I kind of think he'll probably be drafted more so in the late teens, maybe early 20s.
I just got a note because you're the one that puts this out about a commitment. Do you want to go ahead and give us that information?
Yeah. So Byron Nelson, cornerback Leo Almanza, 4-star or a 3-star prospect actually in the 2025 class. He did just commit. He was the guy that I was kind of alluding to that was going to make his decision here at 4. Really good prospect, a cornerback prospect, the first one to commit for Baylor in this class at that position. We know the success that Kevin Curtis has had developing that position. When you look at guys like Caden Jenkins and Carl Williams, how good they did as true freshmen. And now, turning the table here to this class, and Leo Almanza was the Texas 4-6A utility player of the year. He had 4 interceptions on defense, but then he also had 518 yards and 9 touchdowns on offense. So he's the kind of player that really, really fits what they're looking for as a guy who's actually a playmaker at the cornerback position. And so, yeah, it's a really nice fit, and it's a head-to-head win for Baylor over Kansas State, Utah, and Houston.
What were your thoughts about the Bob Simpson gift, the $10 million? It's mainly men's basketball, which I think he's been doing some of that. But also Mitch Thompson is going to join us today at 5:30, getting some of that. It looks like some of that money, too, with NIL and baseball.
That's huge. I mean, I don't know how many times that, Craig and I have talked about baseball on the Bearcast this year, and almost all of it was, either it was negative about how the season was going or negative about them losing a key player to the transfer portal. And I just think, there is a place for NIL to work in baseball. And I think Baylor definitely needs to be able to, kind of harness that a little bit more. I mean, you're seeing, schools across the country that have really invested in it, like the SEC, which Baylor's not going to ever be on that level of investment. But I do think they can invest enough to where they can keep their own and still go out and bring in some talented players to try to turn that program around. Because, it's been a really, really rough past 2 years for that program, and they definitely need to turn the tide a little bit, and hopefully this gives them some momentum going into next year.
Yep, I think so. We'll hear from Mitch at 5:30. I know it's got to be a relief for him. And I said this earlier, Grayson, that, Bob Thompson kind of went into the background after the controversy in 2016 with the coaching change with Art and all that, because he was a huge friend and also a supporter of Art Briles. And I thought that when he disappeared, you wondered when he would come back. And he's one of the founders of that stadium, McLean Stadium. But it's nice to see him that he's not completely gone. I think he's been doing some things with men's basketball. I asked if we could get him on. We haven't yet, but I think that's also good to see him getting himself back together. Not football, but at least doing something with a couple of sports.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, anytime you're able to get donors, to reinvest into the program and really make it a priority, it's huge. I mean, that's simply put, that's how you're going to get to the point where you're most successful, is when all of your alumni are completely bought into the program. And nowadays it's more important than ever to, do so with the resources that you're able to, because it's all about trying to keep up with, the other top schools in the country and try to close the gap money-wise, because frankly, that does seem to be what it's all about now.
Thank you very much, Grayson. Have a great weekend. Grayson Grundhafer, Sikkim365.com, has always keeps up with the official visits, the commitments. He even had it, which means he kind of knew but had to wait. Some. That's fine. And then we appreciate that. We had a little breaking news on that, but also on many things, men's basketball, and also the donation for baseball and the NIL. All right, here's what I want to do. Earlier in the week, I was able to be a part of a kind of a back and forth. It's an interesting, I can't really talk too much about it, but one of the questions, it was in a debate form, but one of the questions was, and I want you to stop for a second and realize that this is probably a list that could include anywhere from 8 to 15 players. We're going to talk Iowa State with Rob Gray at about 4:25. We're going to break, but before we do, I want to give you the question. And then I don't want you to just throw out names. Like, I don't want you to just say Ron Dane. I want you to say Ron Dane why. And we'll read those when we come back for about 10 or 12 minutes. And I want you to, as the older folks like me can go back a little bit deeper, back to the 60s with O.J. Simpson, 70s with Marcus Allen and Earl Campbell and Billy Sims and many others, and Tony Dorsett. And then, of course, there's the Barry Sanders, and then whoever else you want. There's the guys from Texas. I mentioned Earl, but Ricky Williams and Cedric Benson and Bijan. But Bijan in the all-time great category, as good as he was, and I love the kid, not in that conversation. But the question I have that I had to ask myself was, do you need to be just somebody that accumulated a bucket load of yards, even for a team that wasn't very good, for 1 year or more? Or do you need to have won a Heisman? And would it make a difference if you won a Heisman and the national championship during your career? Not 1 year, not a couple of years, but I'm talking about an entire career. I have my answer, which I did my due diligence by calling somebody that would be a part of this conversation as maybe one of those names. That from you. Who's the greatest running back in college football history? But also give me, while you can, in one of your messages, the reason why. I'm David Smoke, Garrett Ross today. Paul Catalina is on vacation, back with us on Monday. Craig is out of pocket until Monday. We're here. Glad you're here. This is 365 Sports. I don't know which one. We'll do Waco Custom Marketplace.
Yeah, Waco Custom.
Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, where they have a full-service butcher shop and a full-service bakery. The other day I went in, I think it was Monday, because I was out of town in Dallas over the weekend, and I went in on Monday, and the butcher shop had all this seafood laid out, from mahi to salmon and more. But what caught my attention, I love shrimp. I could eat shrimp on anything. I mean, literally, I could make a joke here I can eat shrimp on pretty much anything. Whether it's grilled, whether it's fried, whether it's sauteed, whatever, boiled, all of it. Anything, I could eat shrimp. But they had some large tiger shrimp that was out in there on the ice in their display. And I bought like 8 to 12 pieces. Last night, I deveined them, cracked off the shrimp, the shells, and then I deveined them, cut each one of them into like 3 little plump pieces, and then I had myself some linguine with a little bit of sauteed tiger shrimp, kind of like just little mouth handful. There were like 25 pieces out of that tiger shrimp. It was delicious. I know we talk a lot about many things that Waco Custom Marketplace has, but they do have great seafood. And that tiger shrimp was fantastic. Brian Bauer and the Bauer family do a great job with what they have, including live lobster and, yes, live crawfish tails. It's going to go on for a little bit longer, 30-pound sacks. It's somewhere between $3 and $4 a pound, depending on what week it is. And that's going to eventually disappear. But you can order by Wednesday at 6, pick up by any time after 4 on Friday or on Saturday, and enjoy 1 or 2 last crawfish boils. I know that Garrett would absolutely love that. So would Ross Dellinger, who always shows up and throws pictures out of a crawfish boil. So would I. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoke and Craig Smoke.
Texas Football Channel, thank you for the super chat. Looking forward to a new, more invigorated approach to University of Houston athletics. We nonetheless thank Chris Pezman for his contributions. I'm reading a story from Chris Baldwin, who does a great job covering Houston. Apparently there was a lot of even turmoil at the end of last year when Pezman, in the article, who was on the clock, after the Dana Holgerson dismissal football buyout, at a time when no one else discussed the real pressure he was under. He did not help himself in a weird last year that saw him go after the University of Washington AD job and seemingly fixate on those Houston Oilers-style blue uniforms at a time when U of H athletic department faced so many more important issues. So what he is also saying is, I believe I'm getting this correctly, they need to lean on Kelvin Sampson to find the right athletic director to lead the school into the future. This was part of the story, both the president and even also billionaire believer Tillman Fertitta. So there's a nice article in papercity.mag about Chris Pezman, who he enjoyed, who had been a part of the show. Now, back to the question. I'm going to give you mine. No, let me read a couple of yours first on who you think is the greatest running back of all time. Of all time. I saw someone mention, not a lot of you have responded to that, which is disappointing. That's okay. Let me see here. D'Angelo Williams, Memphis, Jackson, Mars. He is as much, I think Jackson Mars may sleep with the University of Memphis. Not in a weird, strange way. He has been on us about Twitter and Memphis and all that. And remember now, based on, from all indications, Memphis, the window was there. Was it ever really open? And it just seemed like right now that doesn't look good for them or anyone else as far as anyone else joining an Autonomy 5 conference that's not a part of one of those conferences at this particular time. They're all talking about Herschel Walker. Dominated defenses all 3 years, effectively knocked Alabama off their perch for his entire career. Ashamed he could not duplicate it in the NFL. He was dynamic with Dallas, and then, of course, the trade that gave Dallas all of those picks to Minnesota. He still had some moments, but it just did not seem like it ever really got any better. Charles White, Roger. Charles White, over 6,000 yards rushing, Natty and Heisman Trophy, 2 Rose Bowl trips, MVPs. You're right. Ray Rice turned Rutgers into a national contender to help Rutgers in the Big Ten, also exclusive 2,000-yard club. Of course, there aren't many people that have rushed for 2,000 yards in a season, more than you think. Barry Sanders was my favorite from Dan. Here's why, and somebody else said Sanders was great. So here's what I did. And Garrett, you come back and forth with me on this if you want. So I could say Herschel Walker. I thought about, like Billy Sims. I thought about O.J. Simpson, who won a Heisman and also the national title in the late 60s and had some monstrous years. He was JUCO, and so he didn't play a lot of years at USC. But as far as, he was Barry Sanders in the 60s for me, as far as how electric he was. If you would have had video games back then, he would have probably been that guy. There's Archie Griffin with back-to-back Heismans. No one's ever done that. Earl Campbell. Ricky Williams became the all-time leading rusher. There's others. I'm trying to think of a couple of more that I did not bring up. And there are others. Bo Jackson. Still kind of like, remember now, he was at Auburn. And most of everything you hear about Bo is about what he did in the pros, both in baseball and football. But he was unbelievable. Ron Dane, a bucket load of yards. But Wisconsin, as good as they might have been, they never were able to scratch the itch of anything other than being really good and winning bowl games in the Big Ten. 10 years prior to Tony Dorsett walking on the campus at Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh football team had not had a winning season in the 10 years prior to when he walked on the campus. He had 1,000 yards 4 consecutive years. Now, remember, that was hard for some because their freshmen didn't play for a while. He set a record his freshman year, then broke the all-time Pittsburgh record 3 games into his sophomore year. He was fantastic. And there's a lot of times when people mention who's the best running back in college football history, for some reason, he's overshadowed. Even though he had 4 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, he won a Heisman Trophy. Pittsburgh won the national title. This is before Dan Marino. But what Tony Dorsett did was put them on the map. They won a national title. They had not been any good for 10 years or so. And then all of a sudden, Hugh Green, Dan Marino, among others, became a part of that football program and history. So I picked up the phone and called Earl. This is Tuesday morning. Not dropping names. Everybody knows he's a friend of mine. And he called me back. I said, hey, could you call me? Called me back. I said, listen, you're in this conversation. You are in the conversation as the all-time greatest college football player, right. running back. I said, but who would you say, and he still watches a bunch of football, who would you say is the best ever? And I didn't know. You can go back to guys in the 50s and 60s if you want. I went to OJ. And he said, Tony Dorsett.
Really?
This is somebody who followed Dorsett. Dorsett won the Heisman, I think, in 76. Earl won it in 77 when he was a senior at Texas.
I mean, if Earl says that, it's pretty validated. I know when you posed this question last week, my initial thought process was Archie Griffin naturally because of the Heismans. But then the more I thought about it, man, like, I don't know that I've ever even really seen highlights of Archie Griffin, which is weird. You think you would see them. They would be pretty prevalent, but you don't really see them. So I took like a modern approach when thinking about this, like people I've seen. And for me, it would have to be, I think I got a tie between Reggie Bush and Adrian Peterson.
And Reggie Bush and Peterson. In fact, Dundee's mentioned Peterson.
Man, like what they were able to do for their teams. And Craig, I mean, he's laid it out better than anybody. Adrian got hosed that freshman year. He should have won the Heisman. That was also at the time where no freshman had ever been given it. I think Johnny was the first one to get it as a freshman. But hindsight, looking back, if the rules would have changed, Adrian Peterson deserved that. I think what they meant to their teams, both won titles. Bush obviously got the Heisman. That's debatable. He just now got it back. But, man, I think those two and probably LaMichael James are ones that immediately come to my mind from the current generation that I remember, that I've grew up watching personally.
Yeah, Mike Rozier's another one that's in the conversation, and he was JUCO. Adrian Peterson for what he did. Somebody else mentioned another. I mentioned Ricky. I mentioned Earl. I mentioned Herschel. Jim Brown when he's at Syracuse, and that was brought up in this conversation. But Dorsett put Pittsburgh on the map. Now, they had a bunch of national titles like in the 30s.
Right.
But there was like a 40-year drought where and it's not what he just did when he got there, it's what it meant to the program after he left. Mm-hmm. And Earl said one of the things about Tony Dorsett, I thought about this when he was especially in the NFL. Everyone knows about the 99-yard run. Everyone knows about the time that Darrell Green caught him from behind. He was the fastest player in the NFL for a while. And Dorsett was blazing fast. But one of the parts of his game that I always was impressed with, especially in the NFL. Now, we're not talking NFL. But his ability to run between the tackles for a guy that wasn't very big. Mm-hmm. He wasn't Herschel Walker, Bo Jackson, Adrian Peterson, Earl Campbell big. But he was able to find ways, wiry strong, however strong, and he did this in the NFL too, but he did it in Pittsburgh. I went back and watched highlights of him. Mm-hmm. This wasn't just, hey, run, pitch it wide, score. He ran as wild in between the tackles and found a way. I said, you've heard me say this, he could find a room through a keyhole. Mm-hmm. He could do that too. So he was much stronger, just not physically large. And when Earl said that, I had picked Dorsett. That was going to be my guy. And I was like, let Earl maybe give. And when Earl said that, I just
solidified it.
Yeah. Yep, it did. It did. Marcus Dupree, again, that's short term. Yeah. We have rules on this show. Johnny Rodgers was not a running back, Dan. He was a wing back. He was like a wide. He ran the ball, but he was not a running back. But I appreciate that. I love Johnny Rodgers. The thing is, we don't want to have 35 names here. And I asked everyone, if you gave a name, tell us why. And not many of you did that, but some of you finally did. But Dupree did not finish his career, remember? He kind of ended up going. But as far as gifted, if we want to say that, as he was gifted for a year or two, Edwin Simmons at Texas from Hawkins High School had that year or two, but panned out and didn't finish it up. Jamal Charles. Dustin mentioned Jamal Charles. Jamal Charles was a phenomenal player. I'll never forget. Glad you brought him up. Never forget. Nebraska was during their, they were falling apart. They weren't very good. They were okay, but they just weren't very good. And they went down to Austin, and they were somehow or another, they were beating Texas in Austin. And I think for somehow or another, Texas started giving Jamal the ball more, and he ended up with 200 yards in the fourth quarter. Had a massive game. They came back to win the game. Somebody mentioned Marshall Faulk at San Diego State. Absolutely. Has to be a part. He was like a Reggie Bush, Marshall Faulk. We're kind of the same type of guys.
My only problem or my only pushback on the Jamal Charles thing would be how many Texas fans or college people in general would say Jamal Charles is even the best running back that Texas has ever had.
They've had a bunch.
You've had so many there. So if you have to debate that, then how would you be able to say that it's the best
Chris
ever?
Gilbert, Jim Bertelsen, Steve Worcester, Roosevelt Leaks, Earl Campbell, and then of course the ones with Ricky Williams, Cedric Benson,
Kid from Belton,
Ricky Williams, Cedric Benson, who?
That kid from Belton,
Ramonce Taylor,
Taylor,
and then some of the others. That Red Grange is, of course, one of the old school ways as well. So those are some of the names, and Jamal Charles was obviously phenomenal too. So those are just some of the names, and Bijan would be a part of the UT, but not the greatest of all time. But there we go. Thank you for some of your feedback. When we come back, Iowa State loaded, almost I think everybody back. We're going to hear from Rob Gray. He covers Iowa State football next on 365 Sports. Got this from Ted Teague, in fact, just yesterday. The week of Ram is upon us at Waco, in Waco at Allen Samuels in Waco. Check out the selection of the tremendous buys like the 2024 Ram Laramie, four-wheel drive, $17,500 off MSRP, or a 2024 Ram 2500 Crew Cab, four-wheel drive with 6.4-liter V8 with automatic transmission, chrome package for $45,300 plus tax, title, and license. 2024 Ram 1500 four-wheel drive, quad cab, 5.7 V8 Hemi for $37,990 plus tax, title, and license. $12,800 off MSRP, by the way, with that one. 2024 Ram 2500 Laramie Crew Cab, four-wheel drive, Cummins diesel, which can pull anything, anywhere, $62,700 plus tax, title, and license. That's $14,000 off this week at Allen Samuels. I told you I drove that 2025 Ram 1500. It's like driving the best luxury car you can, but with the power. And I mean, it is fantastic. I had a chance, thanks to DJ and Ted Teague, to drive that earlier in the week. Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Rob Gray, CycloneFanatic.com, joins us on 365 Sports. Again, if you did not hear this earlier, Paul Catalina has been on vacation for the last week. He'll be back on Monday. Craig is out today. He'll be back on Monday, too. Garrett Ross and I running here at the mothership on 101 Elm and MLK in Waco, a mile or so away on the west side of 35 from McLean Stadium. Rob, thank you very much for being a part of the show. So how loaded and reloaded is Iowa State and Matt Campbell?
First of all, thanks for having me, Smokey. I'd say extremely on both counts. Now, what that translates to from a win-loss record is always a bit of an adventure for the Cyclones, as we've seen in recent years. But I think what ESPN, Bill Conley has Iowa State as the second most returning production, 85% or so. However, they measure that on both sides of the ball, or just offensively. Expectations extremely high, given that so many players are coming back who started on the offense and the defense and in special teams. So, they're feeling great. And this, once again, second year in a row, new look Big 12.
Yeah, it is. And now, I forgot who it was, but somebody was mentioning us with Matt Campbell. It might have been Paul when he was talking about Iowa State. He goes, they never seem to string things together, but he actually had 5, I think it was, consecutive winning seasons, and then they blew a tire. But it seemed like when no one expected them, they came right back. And, of course, last year were a nice surprise. Are they a team that is better when they're under the radar or not?
Well, that's a good question. They'll tell you what any staff tells you, that they don't pay attention to what happens, quote unquote, outside their walls and all that. And that may or may not be true on a collective basis. But certainly for individuals, you wonder whether that stuff creeps in. Even Brock Purdy's senior season would be labeled a disappointment after the second 9-win season in program history as a senior, with him and Charlie Kohler now with the Ravens, Jake Hummel now with the Rams. A loaded roster. That team just went 7-6, lost the bowl game to I believe it was Clemson that year. So there might be something to that, but I think it's more the fact that to fall into another Campbell trope or a cliche, however you want to call it, winning in the quote unquote margin is important for them, and they were really bad at that in the 2023 season. 2 seasons ago, and they were much better at it last season. And I think that's where they've got to be. Even though they return all this talent and production, it still is not the type of high-end 4- and 5-star talent that you see across a lot of Big 12 rosters, let alone the elite programs in the country.
So Matt Campbell, the Big 12, we were bringing this up the other day. The Big 12 has Leipold. People wanted him. Obviously, Kleiman. People wanted him. After 21, people wanted Aranda. And the last couple of years have not gone very well. These are guys who have done well before they got into the higher level of college football, as did Matt Campbell. Isn't that pretty cool that they're all around the same area and they're right next to each other and they're having this kind of success?
Well, I think it is. And then you see the ups and downs with each one. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Kleiman, fans were clamoring for him to be, dismissed, because they were struggling a little bit in Manhattan. And obviously, as you mentioned, in your neck of the woods, Dave Aranda has not had the level of success he, extended, from previous eras. But, the last couple of seasons haven't gone as well. Matt Campbell, at Iowa State, it's always, doing more of less. He's had more success certainly than most coaches, maybe any coach in Iowa State history. He's closing in on the all-time wins mark Dan McCarney holds. But, it's really cool because they're, a lot of them are young coaches. I mean, heck, for people from my area, a couple of them, at least one has Iowa roots. Kleiman at Kansas State, came from Waterloo, was on the Northern Iowa staff. And then, Campbell came in, believed, created a different kind of culture at Iowa State where they didn't feel the ceiling was just getting to a bowl game, but the ceiling was competing for a Big 12 title. And they did play in at least one of those games, lost by a touchdown to Oklahoma a few years back. So it's really neat, and it's really kind of neat to see how these coaches also navigate those ebbs and flows, the ups and downs that are inevitable in programs that just are almost any program that's outside of a handful.
So let me get to Iowa State. I mentioned they have a bunch of people back. You've mentioned they have to do it a certain way. They're not going to get the 4- and 5-star guys, and a lot of teams in the Big 12 aren't going to do that very often. It's a workmanlike, and sometimes when you say this, it's a workmanlike, people with chips on their shoulder, then that sometimes people think, well, you're saying there's no talent. There's talent there, but it just seems like this is what works best for them, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the blueprint that they followed was, find some under-the-radar guys, don't even worry about the stars they have. Of course, many of them would probably generally grade out to consensus 3 stars. Some of the guys that they've turned into pros, like Brock Purdy, like Charlie Kohler, like Jake Hummel, like Anthony Johnson. Now, a number of guys, much more than in recent years. Pin your hopes on that. They do get guys to the transfer portal. They've had some successes there, but you don't have the kind of NIL money at Iowa State that you have with a lot of the bigger, programs, especially when you're talking SEC Big Ten. So that's the blueprint that they've tried to follow. And so far, I mean, in terms of relative success at Iowa State, it's been unprecedented from Matt Campbell. I mean, for them to become a team that week in, week out, nobody says they don't have a chance. Even in their previous 9-win season with Dan McCarney, there were a few games where you knew they didn't have a chance. In that 2000 season, they didn't have a chance against Oklahoma. They didn't have a chance against Kansas State that year, and it showed. But with Campbell, they pretty much have a chance week in and week out. And that's the unprecedented thing he's been able to do at Iowa State, and that's the formula, the blueprint that they're sticking with in terms of trying to get back beyond 7 wins and get back into that 8-9 win echelon they've been in recent years.
If they don't have if they don't end up better than 7-6 or whatever, what went wrong?
Well, usually it's the special teams failures, inability to make plays in the key moments. I mean, that 2 seasons ago, 6 losses by, a touchdown or less. And you could point to areas in those games where there were just critical breakdowns. The team basically, I would tell people that if you made a list, you cannot do these things if you want to win the game. Iowa State checked every single box, whether it be 5 or 6 boxes, in virtually every loss they had. And, that's for a team that emphasizes, a program that emphasizes how much you have to pay attention to detail, how much you need to win in the quote-unquote margins in order to have success. That was a glaring, chronic breakdown for the team. And then it started to revert back last year. They won a few more close games. It started to do more of those things, executing in those key moments. And, we'll see how this group does. I mean, you got the reigning Big 12 offensive freshman of the year, Rocco back at quarterback, who was courted by significant NIL money that he rebuffed in order to stay for less at Iowa State because he likes what he's got there. He knows what he's got there. And, again, it's always a real season for Iowa State. No matter what the expectations are, and they're very high this season, you just never know what you're going to get because, again, the margin for error is so slim.
Does everything kind of set the table with what happens in at Iowa in week 2?
I feel like that's important, but then again, 2 seasons ago, they went and beat Iowa for the first time in a while in a close game, one of the rare close games they won, and then after that, they could not, just to save their lives, execute in key moments to win a game. So I feel like, you start with North Dakota. All the Dakota schools now at the FCS level, they're all kind of sneaky good because for some reason they all have a bunch of money. Even not just North Dakota State, South Dakota State, which is been champion. So that'll be a bit of a test because they always struggle. It feels like against Northern Iowa, another FCS opponent in state. So we'll see how that goes. I feel like if they play well at Iowa and are able to produce offensively to some extent, and have a game plan that tries to exploit Iowa's weaknesses instead of playing to its strengths defensively, I think that'll tell a lot. New offensive coordinator and Taylor Mauser after Nate Scheelhaas was 1 year in, and now he's off and now the LA Rams staff. So it's more how they call the game, how they play the game, I think, against Iowa that'll kind of set the table for what comes, in another non-conference game, then, of course, Big 12 play.
Yeah, and you don't know because the Big 12, this. You never know who's going to jump up out of nowhere. It was Baylor in 21 when you couldn't really see that coming because the year before they were 2-7 COVID. And then TCU not only jumped up but played for the national title despite how it ended. But at Houston and then Baylor, does that kind of have a soft opening type look for them to maybe be able to get out whatever happens with Iowa to jump off to a nice start?
Yeah, it feels like it, but then again, I mean, you never know. I mean, like you said, I mean, they're in Waco. When you don't expect it, sometimes, you know, you got enough talent there that you can catch lightning in a bottle and sustain that for a couple of years before there's another hiccup. And yeah, I've been kind of surprised that the Bears have been down the last couple of years, given Aranda's pedigree and just the trajectory of the program in the previous several seasons. But that it does set up pretty well for Iowa State, especially when you consider other things. Like the Kansas game will be, on paper at least, a neutral site game at Arrowhead Stadium. A lot of Iowa State fans go to Kansas City, as we've seen for the men's and women's basketball tournaments. I know Kansas is on the rise with Leopold, but there will be a lot of Iowa State fans in that stadium as well. So that's not a true road game. That helps a lot. It was already a season in which they have 5 home instead of 4 on the road. So pretty favorable setup all the way. But you're right. At least on paper, it looks like a soft start. But, you know, that remains to be seen, as we often know, every topsy-turvy Big 12 season.
What are your thoughts about the story that was a week ago about the Big 12 looking at naming rights and then also the possibility of a relationship with a private equity firm?
I really would. I like the idea of naming rights a heck of a lot more than throwing your lot in with private equity. I think there's a lot of unknowns there, a lot of things that would remain behind the scenes. I feel like it would be pretty murky for people to try to navigate. And, you know, what are the, you know, with naming rights, it's not that different than just selling the stadium's naming rights. Right? It's like, hey, we just cast a check because Allstate or somebody wants to be the All-State Conference, the All-State Big 12 Conference, or, you know, whomever. I feel like that should have more legs if it doesn't already. But I mean, I do give Brett Yormark a lot of credit to know that, hey, the Big 12 wants to be the third conference now that the SEC and you know, TV has helped them. The SEC and Big Ten have really distanced themselves as the top two. And you look at every approach, you look at every possibility, and I give them credit for that. But I'm a bit leery of the private equity thing. I think the naming rights thing, if you can get it, especially given the settlements of the lawsuits and how many athletic departments are going to face significant budget shortfalls. You can take a chunk out of that and to help make up for those shortfalls. I mean, why not do it?
Yeah. There's a reason people have to find more, what I've been saying, you got to find more scratch. You got to find more dollar bills or quarters on the corner. You know, you got to, they have to find a way. And it might be unique, which sometimes people go, ooh, and yet, ooh was really everything that's happened in college football the last 3 to 5 years, from realignment, people leaving because they wanted more money, and they also wanted to play against bigger stadiums against better teams overall. But really, a lot of this is forced because of ooh. And so what will be interesting is if somebody like the Big 12, whoever it is, that becomes the name of the conference, if at some point one of the larger of the two biggest conferences would have attached somebody to their name, and then it would be, oh, okay, that's fine. I think it's proactive. Whether or not it works or not remains to be seen.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I mean, the quote-unquote bigger conferences, the ones that have found the most favor financially, obviously, they can, you know, lift up their nose and, you know, pretend to be this or that. This has all been, you know, this has all been very unseemly, frankly, you know, from all the ways conferences have ended. I mean, excuse me. Iowa State's athletic director, James Pollard, made a point. Iowa State does this tailgate tour every May where they go to smaller towns and go across the state. And you made a point when you asked about some of these things that, you know, when you talk about what should happen or what may happen, you just don't know, and you have to be open to all possibilities. And his point was, who at this point, I don't know, a year ago or 2 years ago, but it's not that the Pac-12 would not be a thing anymore. That the Pac-12 was gone, destroyed. And did the Big 12 destroy it? No, the Big 12 got people from that conference, gave them a lifeboat because it helps the Big 12. You know, that was the TV. Well, the Pac-12 did a lot of it to itself in terms of, you know, not, you know, re-upping on its TV deal, trying to get something better, not going streaming, and then saying, oh, whoops. I mean, that a lot of it was self-inflicted, but a lot of it was this view factor that you talked about that's been permeating college athletics for a while now, and maybe forever. I mean, just under the surface rather than more in your face. So, yeah, you got to do what you got to do. From the Big 12 perspective, when you're lagging behind the SEC and the Big 10, and you've got, who knows what's going to happen in the ACC, given all the defectors potentially there, the headliners, of course, Florida State, et cetera.
Yeah.
You gotta throw everything on the wall and see what sticks.
All right, last thing. Were you in Iceland, or you just love pictures of Iceland?
I was in Iceland with my daughter. My daughter likes to travel. My wife hates to travel, so all my international travel that wasn't solo, I've done with my daughter. My son is starting to come around. He's 15. I might be able to take a couple trips with him. But, yeah, went to Iceland. Cold, extremely windy, even in the summer. Had a giant snowstorm in the north. But, my God, you'll see so many incredible waterfalls. By the end of a week or 10 days, you'll be like, I don't need to see another waterfall for 3 months, at least, or a few years. So I was in Iceland, and I would recommend everyone go there if they have a chance. Yeah,
I saw the pictures. We just put one of them up. Man, it's just so beautiful. I know, yeah, like you said, it's cold, whatever, but it's just so beautiful and cool that you were able to do that with your daughter. Thank you very much. Rob, thank you. We'll have you on more, if that's okay, talking Iowa State football and other things as well.
Yeah, sounds good. Appreciate the time, Smokey, and look forward to talking down the road.
Rob Gray from Cyclone Fanatic. Chris Williams is the one that said, hey, you need to get Rob on, and now I'm glad we did, from Cyclone Fanatic. All right, when we come back, a little bit of a bubble here. We might catch up on a couple of different stories. We are loaded up in the 5 o'clock hour from Mark Daniels, voice of UCF Athletics, Mitch Thompson, Baylor baseball coach, on an NIL gift that was announced earlier today, and then also for men's basketball too. And then also Joseph Duarte was able to get in touch with me about the Chris Pezman change at the top of the University of Houston Athletics. So all of that and more to come, but a couple other notes we'll get to next on 365 Sports.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Thank you for calling your local Marco's Pizza. We're turning up the heat with our new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Fresh, house-made dough is topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. At only $5.99, this limited-time product is a hot deal. Add it to your order while you can. A Marco's team member will be with you shortly.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it, and that offer on the Reaper Cheesy Bread is available right now at any of the 5 Marco's Pizza locations in Waco, including Belmead, China Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. Order online at marcos.com. Call for a pickup or delivery. Marco's Pizza is turning up the heat with their all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers, and only $5.99 and for a limited time only. Marco's Pizza, the fastest-growing pizza brand in America, 5 locations in Waco, and the new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sikkim 365 superfan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
By the way, here on the set with me is a bottle of HEB electrolyte solutions. I think this is called Pedialyte, right? Isn't that
yeah,
what
a little Pedialyte.
So Wednesday, Garrett, we stayed a little bit later so we could record a few of the things for Thursday's show, which was kind of a best of, and then it was a couple of interviews we added. So I did that. And what did you see Wednesday at about 6:20?
You completely fall apart, man. Like it was weird because out of nowhere you went from being just fine to like chills and everything, and it was the weirdest damn thing I've honestly seen.
I was freezing to death. Like I had where this would have been like this. Though I mean, it's a big. This is that I'm drinking a lot of this. I mean, I had the worst chills. At 65 years old, this is going back probably 55 or so years. I remember one time that I was so cold. I had such you had the chills that my mom just like but just threw me into the shower. Cold. I'm talking not cold shower like a teenager needs to have. I'm talking about a freezing cold shower because I was shaking so badly. It reminded me of that. So I went home the whole time just doing this, just awful shakes. I mean, it's horrible. I went home, I took my laptop bag that I always have, and I put it on the stool that's next to where my desk is. That's where it is. Did not take my computer out. I always take out my laptop, put it on my desk, kind of my office area. I went downstairs, took off my shoes, left everything else that I was wearing, got under the covers, and I have like 8 or 10 pillows, got under the covers, turned off the ceiling fan. I love it. Turned the air conditioner off at 70. Normally I have it like at 70 at where I live. And I could not get warm. I was freezing to death.
Yeah.
And I actually tried to close my eyes and say, okay, if I could just take a little power nap here. And then I was like, you might not wake up. I mean, it was weird. I didn't need to throw up. I didn't have anything else. I didn't have that. I obviously had a fever because, so I jumped out from under those covers after maybe 15 minutes. I was miserable. And I got in the car and I drove to an urgent or whatever you call it, urgent care.
Yeah.
And I got there, and about the time I did sort of a bunch of other people, but I was able to get in there. I had 102-something fever. And they said, you don't have symptoms for flu. You don't have the symptoms for COVID. You don't have, you didn't test positive for those. And, everyone knows I had that prostate surgery. And so
that was what I was worried about.
Was there something maybe tied up or something got flipped over? Or was there do I have some sort of a bladder infection? They said they did I peed in a cup. Never have heard from them. So I guess that was okay, because I think they set some of that in a Petri dish, and hope something grows out of it. I don't know. And then on Thursday morning, I woke up and I felt okay. And then by the end of the morning, I was like 100.7. My temperature on Thursday morning was like 98.7, like a radio station. Yeah. Then it went back up to just over 100. So spent a lot of time yesterday. I then went to bed last night after everything. I went to bed at 8. I did not get out of bed unless I had to get up for what I have to do in the middle of the night. I did not wake up and get out of bed until 11 o'clock this morning.
Well, hopefully
and even then I was miserable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least you were able to rest like that.
Yeah, you kind of do, but you kind of don't, because for me to sleep any time after 6:30 or 7 is kind of like I've lost the day. But I just didn't I was lethargic. I didn't feel well. My temperature was at about 11:30 today. My temperature was like 100.7 again. And then so I took 4 Advil or ibuprofen, went back and laid down, crashed, tried to keep my phone up, but I was still trying to see if we could get some guests on the show. And I guess I felt okay. I wondered about if we're going to do the show or not because Craig wasn't going to get back really in time. Paul's out. I'm like, well, then we had the power outage.
That's why I was like, is this a sign? Like, I didn't know. I was like, man, what the heck is happening here?
Oh, ask Michael DeHart. A blood test will tell you if there's an infection. They did all that, and I have not had anything come back. By the way, Mrs. Stockbroker, not retired stockbroker, but Mrs. Stockbroker, who's used to be in the medical field, told me in a text message when I told him, hey, we're having a power outage. I got 2 or 3. There's like 5 or 6 people that we have that are listeners that I've given my number. If there's something we need to get from them or vice versa, she said, get back in bed. By the time she said that, I was here. So I got to deal with that.
Yeah, that's going to be some good backlash, I'm sure. I can't wait to hear about that one.
I heard you can kill your kidneys. Alan, I don't think I don't need
that, Alan.
I don't have anything behind me. But I got to tell you, this is crazy. So at the start of the year, back in, March, I had a back injection that when they knocked it out. Then my brother passed away. Jennifer got married, Daniel and Jennifer Golden. And then I had my banquet. The same week of my banquet, my brother-in-law passed away. Then I had my surgery the day after the banquet. Then there's the healing for that. And then my brother's memorial. And then yesterday, Jim Primos's memorial. And then I got whatever this is. I mean, it's just crazy.
I think you just need some rest, man.
But
you need to chill.
Here's the thing, though. I've had more, honestly, I feel like I've been, today, Craig even made the comment, if you have a fever, we don't need to do the show. And Mrs. Stockbroker said that too. I feel like we've already missed too many shows. But we really had a show yesterday. We just did a best of and a couple other things. So I'm here. If I die, I'm blaming it on the viewers.
There we go.
And then we have the power outage.
Yes.
So
twice. Dang.
I'm supposed to play golf in the morning.
I think you might need to cancel that tee time, Smokey.
We probably will.
I know. I don't.
Xavier, rest this weekend, sir. Who else was saying? Yeah, stay out of the heat for sure. Rest. Nothing like chat room diagnosis. Stop taking ibuprofen. Now, I do know that ibuprofen can create issues with your kidney. I think that's what Alan was talking about.
Because you're supposed to rotate ibuprofen and Tylenol or something like that.
Take it easy. We all understand. I'm on kidney meds now from Alan. Alan, be careful. Snot bubble from Kim. Surprised no one has mentioned what is it? How do you say it?
What is that?
Invectin. That's like.
We'll leave that alone.
Take it easy this weekend. I have taken it easy. I've been in Florida for a week, even though there was
That's travel,
memorial.
man. That's not taking it easy.
Yeah. So I just, man, it has been a hell of a run. And it's almost July, and I feel like I haven't had anything really I haven't enjoyed this year for obvious reasons with the 2 people dying, brother and brother-in-law. My God. All right, we come back. Mark Daniels, the voice of UCF Athletics. We also have Joseph Duarte on the Chris Pezman. He's out as AD at Houston, which we mentioned at the top of the show. And Mitch Thompson, Baylor baseball, who I think has really done much since the end of the season that ended so badly. And what does that gift mean today from donor and alum Bob Simpson? This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. When it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoke and Craig Smoke.
Craig and Paul back on Monday. David Smoke on the set. Garrett Ross running the mothership. This is the last hour today in the week of 365 Sports. Mark Daniels, voice of UCF Athletics, joins us on 365 Sports. Mark, thank you very much. The first year of UCF in the Big 12 has come and gone. The great lead up, and then, of course, now 4 new teams coming in July. Was there a specific call you had in the last year among all the things you had that was the one that stood out the most?
Wow, that's a great question. I don't know about a specific call. I think the game that UCF fans in football will certainly remember the most of their first year was the game against Oklahoma State.
Mm-hmm.
And the Cowboys came in off of that great win against Oklahoma, and UCF is kind of searching for that big win in their Big 12 rookie year, and then to have the game go the way that it did. They shut down Ollie Gordon early, and UCF offensively began to make plays. R.J. Harvey was the best running back that day on the field, and it was a big win for UCF on a space game, which I've never lost with their uniforms and everything. So I think that was a signature win in football this past year for UCF, and learned a lot, excited, and as you said, Smokey, now we're veterans in this league. I mean, year 2, I mean, good grief. We're like one of the old guards in the Big 12 now, right?
Yeah, you are, with the 4 that now start their second year, 4 that are about to start their first year. And then if you really think about it, with TCU and West Virginia, they didn't come in until a little bit after, 2011 or 12?
It was like 11 or 12, yeah.
And really, there's just 6 teams from the original Big 12 that are a part of what is 16 teams in the Big 12.
Yeah, it's crazy. But look, one thing that I also learned last year, and people can view it however they want, I do think this league is in pretty good shape. I mean, you can say, well, nobody wants anybody in that league, maybe, but I do know that this group now realizes this is the best place for them right now. There's a lot of other change going on in other leagues out there. I think it helps this league that you don't have a third or half your league looking elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that changes down the road, but I think it helps solidify the Big 12. And I think from a football standpoint, guys, there doesn't appear to be any overwhelming favorite. I think a number of teams can make an argument why they can be in the hunt to get to a Big 12 championship game, and I think that makes for a great conference in football.
And that leads me to the question. We, all 3 of us, Craig, Paul, and I released our Big 12 preseason rankings. And for some reason this year, to me, it kind of fell into 3 different groups, with the midsection as a larger group. But last year, I mean, I struggled. I didn't know. And now we have 4 new teams. there's still a lot of the unknown. When you filled yours out, was that something that took a lot of time? Did you have to stare at it a few times, or did you kind of let it all fall together for you?
No, I think that's pretty consistent. Last year, you kind of looked at it, and were we ready to think that Texas was going to make a jump like they did? I thought Kansas State was going to be a really solid football team. I thought Kansas was going to be good, and you had to have the year kind of develop. And then I look at this season, and certainly Utah comes in with experience. Arizona brings back some people from a really good team. Last year, Colorado, I still think they're trying to figure out. But I also think there are a number of programs that maybe didn't have the season expected last year. I think TCU is going to be significantly better. I think Iowa State is going to be better. So I saw some of the stuff you guys were posting, and it sounded like I'm like, oh, that's ridiculous. That team you have 10 should be third. It's like, But guys, is the gap from 4 to 10? It's not like it's a 3-win gap. It might not be a 1-2 win gap. And as we all know, so many of these games come down to a possession or two, and that's the difference sometimes of going 6-3 or 3-6 or being 7-2 and still have a chance for the conference championship game.
Somebody just mentioned there are 7 from the original because Colorado was a part of the original,
right?
And they're back, so that does count. Thank you, Bracket Cat, for letting me know that. All right, so KJ Jefferson, Penny Boone, a tremendous amount. You have Harvey back as well. That's one hellacious backfield, it appears, Mark, that Gus Malzahn has time to play with.
Guys, I think last year I said this, forget what announcers and the media thought. I think for UCF's coaching staff and players, they had to go through a season to really understand the Big 12 and learn about the quality and depth of lines offensively, defensively, how physical the league was. We've talked about a number of times about quality linebackers and safeties that are 6'2" and 210, 220. And I think UCF saw that firsthand. And I think Gus and his staff really said, okay, how do we get better? How do we hit the portal to areas that we've got to be better at? And then what about things that we can add to that we're good at to make us even stronger? And it's really interesting as UCF did this. KJ Jefferson is a really big get. The quarterback of Arkansas kind of fits in with what Gus wants to do. I'm not saying is as good as Cam Newton, but he'll play a type of offense like Gus did with Cam because of his size. R.J. Harvey comes back, and there was UCF sitting there with R.J. Harvey, kind of a dual threat in Johnny Richardson, an undersized speed guy, and all of a sudden Penny Boone kind of falls, I would say, lap or an opportunity, and you say to yourself, okay, do we bring in a 1,400-yard rusher with a guy coming back that has all-conference potential, and does it work? And yet R.J. Harvey was on board because Gus had this vision of how he can use both of them. Now, I'm not saying you're going to see McFadden and Jones as they had at Arkansas, but I think Gus saw what you can do. You keep guys fresh. You don't need to have your main back run the ball 25-plus times a game so that you get to the fourth quarter, and hopefully you're able to run the football and wear people down. I think Gus realized that last year. You've got to be able to establish a line of scrimmage. You've got to be able to run the ball. And I think UCF's got a great backfield. I mean, they got 4 guys. I mean, they picked up Miles Montgomery, who's a quality back from Cincinnati as well. So they've got a lot of depth at running back.
So, Mark, it was for them some hit and miss, but for the most part, for the first year, I think UCF, proved they belong. Not that there was any doubt about that. There might have been some that thought there was a doubt about that. They seemed like it was a perfect landing spot, and now they understand all of what they need, like you said, and Gus has kind of reacted to that. Is that what you hear from throughout the program?
Yeah, I think so. Look, last year, and every team can do this, they were in several one-possession games. And all due respect, I think, the Baylor game, obviously a game UCF never should have lost. At Kansas State, they got the ball down 1 score in the fourth quarter, make a mistake with a backup quarterback, cost you the game. Kansas State was a better football team, but UCF was close there. West Virginia, blindside hit, fumble the football when you're trying to tie the game. So those are things that ended up making you be 3-6 instead of maybe 5-4. And then an 8-win season, you feel really good about yourself. But, yeah, I think that they got bigger on lines. They needed depth at linebacker, needed some bigger guys in the secondary, and Gus has been very active in the portal the last couple of years. He'll tell you he's got his best team since he's been at UCF, and I think he'll tell you that he's got a more prepared team for the Big 12. Now they have a better idea about what this league is about. And from a distance, it used to be, hey, just pass the ball, score 50 points first and win. Well, I think UCF saw it last year. you better have guys in the offensive and defensive line. Otherwise, you can't win in this league.
You know, Brett McMurphy's an Oklahoma State grad, the writer for Action HQ Network. Yeah. And he said his daughter goes to UCF. And she was like having fun with that blowout win against Oklahoma State. And he said, nothing can bother me right now because we beat Oklahoma in the last ever meeting, so that one didn't count. But that was what happened that game?
You know, sometimes, guys, stars align, and I think, you know, Oklahoma State comes off the emotion of the win in Bedlam. There's a tendency to have a little bit of a letdown. UCF, you know, space game here means funky uniforms, a jacked up crowd, and then some things go your way early. UCF's defense is shutting down Ollie Gordon. They can't throw the ball, and the Knights' offense is winning the battles, and then the rain comes. So by the time the rain came, I think Oklahoma State had checked out. It became a 3-possession game, and then things just kind of snowballed, and then, you know, it slips away. Do I think that UCF was 7 touchdowns better than Oklahoma State? No. On that day they were, and, you know, things just fell in line. And UCF needed one of those, you know, a lot of close games where things didn't go your way,
right.
and you're going to have that. So I think it just all fell in line last year for them in that particular game. But now I think they've got a team that can sustain drives, that can stop people in a better position. However, they'll play the most challenging schedule in UCF history this season.
All right, so what was your reaction or that around the athletic department on the Brett Yormark and the Big 12 and naming rights for the conference, and also even the possibility of private equity firms?
So, look, on the naming rights side of it, if somebody comes along and says, we'll give you $30 to $50 million to slap our name on your conference in an era now where you're trying to find new dollars, I don't know the downside of that. You know, there's no shortage of wannabe stand-up comics that seem to have anti-Big 12 feelings to begin with, and want to take shots at and everything. And people go, well, you know, what's an additional $2-3 million per program? A lot right now. I mean, that's significant money. I don't know what their name's going to end up being. There'll be no shortage of people that'll take shots at it. And Smoke, you know this, and I show this on my show too. I love the guy on Twitter that wants to take a shot at the Big 12 that worked for a company that was bleeding money that if it didn't get an infusion of cash from somebody, that they wouldn't be in existence.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this in all due respect. I love a ton of people that work for the Athletic. You can't take a pot shot at the Big 12 because if the New York Times didn't bail you out, there'd be no athletic site. Or I love the guy that works for the large, you know, sports company with 4 letters or one of the others that is ripping the Big 12's naming rights while his column has 8 links to sponsors. I mean, you know, what are we talking about here? It's just where business is right now. On the private equity side, here's the other thing that bothered me also. Has anybody read what the deal is? No, there is no deal yet. So at least learn what the terms are going to be. People say, well, the minute you let private equity in, they're going to cut all your non-revenue sports. You think that the private equity group doesn't understand about what Title IX is? And you think that Brett Yormark and ADs and presidents haven't said, look, if we take this on, whatever private equity company, these are things that can't go.
Right.
We just can't get rid of them. You know, and I think there's a big difference, a significant difference, and I'm not a financial genius, but I know a little bit about some of this stuff. There's a big difference between private money and private equity. Significant difference. And let's learn whatever the deal ends up being if there is a deal. Let's see what the terms and conditions are before people just make assumptions. Because there are people out there going, oh, they just gave 20% of the league away, and the first thing they're going to do is they're going to cut all these sports and so forth. That is not going to happen because of Title IX. And let's see what the terms and conditions are. And I'm not saying it's going to work, but I don't think the Big 12 is the last conference looking for additional dollars.
Well, and the reason why the Big 12 or anyone else is looking for extra money is because everybody else who's in a different conference now left because they were wanting more money.
Yeah. Look, it's a challenging time. I say this as UCF is embarking, you know, like everybody else in our league, in a different era. And every school has advantages and some challenges. I'll say this about UCF, and I'm not speaking for athletic director. You know, guys, again, we get half share again this year. The 4 new ones get full shares. So remember, half of UCF's half share goes to the American to finish the buyout. So in 2 years or following next year, when the new economic model from the House versus NCAA settlement takes place, whether it's $20 or $22 million, and there's a lot of budgets right now going, where does that money come from? UCF's got a little bit of an advantage. Why? Because they're going to get this jump in media money that they don't have right now. So to go from what has been about $9 to $10 million, because half has gone to the American for the buyout, and next fall, as you go into that year, where now you're looking at 40 plus, that's $30 million more than UCF had been making. I'm not saying they take all the money out of that to do the rev sheet, but they've got that new money where a lot of other existing programs aren't even spending that money. That's a big advantage as UCF kind of figures how to do this in the next several years, because they're operating on a smaller budget because we're not getting a full media share now.
Great point. Mark, thank you very much. Enjoy the summer. Will you be in Vegas?
Well, someone's got to get out there, so you have to do what they're asking you to do. So, what am I going to do? I mean, you got to go, right?
Yeah, you got to go. We'll see you there. We'll be there, too. Right, can't wait. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate your time, as always. Mark Daniels, voice of UCF Athletics, with us on 365 Sports. Appreciate that from him. When we come back, Joseph Duarte, the Houston Chronicle on Chris Pezman out as AD. Mitch Thompson of Baylor Baseball on the $10 million gift from Bob Simpson. I almost said Bob Thompson, the executive CEO formerly of Fox Sports. Bob Simpson with both men's basketball and also football. That and more. This is 365 Sports.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoke. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Carry On Solutions is a full-service IT management service provider and provides professional services for businesses servicing clients in the U.S. and globally. They are authorized partners with Microsoft, Quest, Veeam, NetApp, HP Enterprise, and Cisco Duo. Whether you are outsourcing IT services, merging companies, or wanting to tackle cybersecurity challenges, contact Carry On Solutions. We are IT. Call or email Dave at 832-437-0138 or sales at Carry On Solutions. That's CARRION Solutions.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Joseph Duarte, Houston Chronicle. Everything Houston Cougars with us on 365 Sports. Joseph, I got to tell you, I was kind of floored when I saw the news about Chris Pezman, but the more and more I read, and of course, you've had a lot of reports as well, that this was something that did a lot of people see this coming except Chris Pezman?
Well, first of all, how come every time we talk, there's something big going on? I'd like to just have a normal conversation with you guys sometime.
We can
talk
do
about
that.
some nice, just some nice spring football updates or something. But, man, there's just so much news going on lately.
It is. You're right.
But, to answer your question, yes, there have been some rumblings, and, with 2 years left on your contract, you generally think, okay, well, at a school like Houston that hasn't been known to necessarily cut ties quickly, you think maybe another year, and then you start looking at that and revisiting it. But, it turned from a end-of-the-year review meeting to time to clean out your desk moment yesterday between the school president, Renew Couture, and now former athletic director Chris Pezman. So, things had been trending in the wrong direction. But, I'll say I was surprised. I didn't think that they'd pull the trigger right now. But they certainly they showed that 1 year into the Big 12, they needed to make a change, and they're not afraid to make that change at the top.
So how much of it, and I believe it was in a report from you, or at least part of a Twitter note, that they weren't thrilled with the fundraising part of it moving forward, and I think the president even kind of alluded to things are different as we move forward.
Yeah, in her release, she noted the changing paradigm of college athletics and how things are evolving with NIL. She didn't specifically talk about the revenue share plan that's in place, but all those things added up. And when you're not at a point in the raising money that Houston just lacks in, they felt like that was the biggest. If you had to choose one huge black mark for Chris Pezman, that was it. And they've had several years that they knew they were going into the Big 12, and they certainly haven't made the progress that they thought that they could be at. And this is a huge market. They've got a large alumni base, and they haven't tapped into it. They have not, in so many words, they haven't had a plan. They went through about 2 years ago and announced this grand campaign that they wanted to do. They wanted to raise $150 million. They announced an initial $50 million or whatever, and from that point, never heard another word about it. Not a peep, no updates, and that kind of shows maybe a lack of direction or progress. And I think between Renew Couture and Tillman Fertitta, they just had enough, and they needed to go out and find somebody who was going to move the needle and get people excited and get maybe some of these corporations that have been untapped in this market on the college level to maybe join forces and take on this new era that we're about to see in college athletics.
Joseph, was the way he handled Holgorsen popular with Holgorsen moving on? They obviously have a great coach in Willie Fritz. Was that timely? Was that something that there was pushback on, or did they say maybe that he waited too late?
Well, I'm not going to put that entire thing on Chris Pezman, because at the end of the day, anybody around this program, this university, knows that there are multiple people that are involved heavily, including Tillman Fertitta. But if there's going to be a fall guy, or if there's going to be someone that's going to have to take the brunt of the criticism, it's going to be the athletic director. So yes, that it was the extension back in 2022 that they did it, and even Chris Pezman at the Big 12 meetings in May, he told me, look, that probably wasn't the right decision, but they wanted to send a message that they were serious, that they were going to be all in with football and with Dana, and it eventually cost them. Dana had his issues and some of the things that he said regarding recruiting and sort of just the nature of how he was conducting business, and it cost them nearly $15 million. So that's a huge chunk of change any school that you're at. So yeah, if there was things that were going to take you from bad to worse, that was it. And the fact that only happened in November sort of tells you that they let the rest of the academic school year play out. And if his fate wasn't decided on that day that they fired Dana, some of the other underperforming sports and how they handled contracts for women's basketball, baseball. There's been some rumblings of some allegations of stuff going on with the softball team. That just all piled up, and they had to make a move.
Why would they have had him as the face or at the front of that event that there was the night before? Was that just go ahead at business as usual and then make the decision when you make the decision?
That's a good question, and that's where part of me is in the camp of I've talked to multiple people that said that Chris Pezman did not think, if he thought something was going to happen, he certainly didn't think it was going to happen the next day. And, I was at that event. I watched him room, shake hands, meet with people, talked about the future. This was not a guy that was preparing to walk out of the building, for the last time, the next day. So that was an odd time. Maybe it was just the tie being a coincidence, but it certainly raised some eyebrows about why would you put yourself in that position, because I have to believe that Kelvin Sampson and Willie Fritz knew something was coming down, because they're going to be involved in the search for an athletic director. And I think the president and Tillman Fertitta would kind of give them some type of heads up. I do know that the rest of the senior staff and those in the program, they didn't know until that email and those tweets went out yesterday that the school was making a change at the AD spot.
So he's gone, and then is the one who was second in command, did he leave as well?
Yeah, Garrett Classy. He's been here less than a year. He came from Nebraska. He just got announced today as the new AD at Fresno State.
That's what I thought. So who's running the ship right now?
That's the other interesting component of this. These searches typically, I can't imagine it taking a long time, but in the interim, the school president appointed a gentleman named Raymond Bartlett. He's a senior vice president for finance and administration. So he's on the other side of campus. He's got no affiliation with the athletics, and I don't know if that's her sending a message that, for now she's going to have one of her people involved, and the fact that the guy who just left was the chief financial officer. Maybe that's not there's no one else to sort of hold down the fort. So they've got to take a look now at how they're going to restructure things internally, and it's just going to be with her appointed person. And right now there's not a lot that's going on. The academic year's over, and there's not a lot of huge items that are left out there. So I think this is just going to be a short term, and then hopefully they get somebody in place here in the next few weeks.
All right, last couple of things. Sampson was hired by Mack Rhodes. Willie Fritz obviously was hired by Pezman. Have you had a chance to visit with Fritz at all? Because that's always, even if he's on great ground for Fertitta and the president, whatever, it's always kind of a little bit unnerving when the person who hired you is no longer there, and especially so fresh as when Fritz is hired like earlier this year.
Right, and going back to the people that are involved and have their fingerprints on things, Fertitta's still here, Couture's still here. Those two were very involved in the Fritz hiring, and with Pezman leaving, I don't see that being any red flag or concern. Whomever comes in and take the athletic director job. I mean, if we were in year 3 or so of Willie's 5 years and the program was still in bad shape, I could see that happening. But when you look at the two top revenue sports with big interest sports, those two are probably the safest of anyone along with Carl Lewis in the track program at the university. So yeah, I don't think that's gonna factor at all. I think more than anything, Willie Fritz will be someone that they do ask, hey, do you have some people that in your time, in your 30 plus years, both he and Kelvin with 30 plus years, that they would suggest that Houston look at before they finalize whoever they're going to hire.
All right, Joseph, Mack Rhodes, of course, had a huge influence at Houston, then Missouri, then, of course, has been at Baylor since 16. Jeremiah Dickey worked for him at Baylor. Now is at Boise State. Is that something that might be of interest to Houston to look at him?
He is a name that certainly has come up in my discussions with people, and I can see that at least going down that road and possible interview. There, to my knowledge, there hasn't been anything that's been set up yet. But yes, Jeremiah's history with the school, moving up the ladder, being Mac's right-hand guy, not only here but at Baylor, should go a long way. Mack Rhodes is still very well thought of and well respected at Houston. He's got a lot of influence when it comes to the Big 12 Conference, and I think he will be a person that certainly it will put in a good word for Jeremiah, and he will be someone that whether it's Tillman Fertitta or Renew Couture, they're going to reach out and they're going to ask his opinion.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with Kelvin Simpson. Kelvin Simpson has a tremendous respect and appreciation for Mack Rhodes and how they got things started at Houston with the facilities that they built and stuff. So Jeremiah, the difference between when he was here last and where he's at now, he's had a few years now running his own department. Boise State is not one of the typical group of five schools. And I think he'll have, a decision to make if it comes down to it where, he can stay at Boise or he can come back to Texas. But he certainly, if he's not the first call they make, I think he'll be among the first few when they start the process.
Joseph, have you heard anything from Chris Pezman?
I have not. I've left messages for him.
Yeah.
I've talked to some people that have had some small, interaction with him since he left, and there hasn't been much out of that. And he was sort of a if there was one knock on him, sort of a private guy, and that's generally not a good thing when you're the face of an athletic program. He didn't do a lot of media, and I don't know if that was just sort of a comfort level, or he just felt like that he wanted to have a lot more to say when the time was right, and it just didn't work out. That Mac is the complete opposite. I listen to Mac when he's on your shows.
Yep.
Mac does interviews all the time. Hunter Yurachek, who's now at Arkansas, was the same way, and then it's kind of a different dynamic with Chris Pezman in his 6 years. But no, I have not spoken with him. But that in terms of my relationship with him, that's nothing new.
Right. Thank you very much, Joseph. Have a great day. Appreciate you jumping on with us. I know it's been a busy couple of days. Thank you as always.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Joseph Duarte, Houston Chronicle. We'll have Mitch Thompson, Baylor baseball coach, here momentarily. And we'll get him on right after. Well, Garrett's got to get everything set up. I just saw where S. Michael DeHart mentioned Guam. I couldn't help it, but that's said, unfortunately, that's the price of our soldier, Marine sailors, and airmen have to pay. My dad had to deal with malaria on Saipan and Guam. Iwo was just desert-like. Luckily, pills worked. I lived in Guam when I was 1 year old. I was born in Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha. My dad was at the Air Force Base, and the next thing you know, we're headed to Guam. And I was there for my first. I was I guess my first ever birthday was at Guam. My brother Philip, who's the one that has that beautiful place on the east coast of Florida, is Guamanian. He was born in Guam. I believe he was born in 1963, but that's cool when I see things that are part of my history and part of my past. So that was cool note from S. Michael DeHart. We're now joined by Mitch Thompson, Baylor baseball coach, with me, David Smoke on 365 Sports. Again, Paul and Craig back on Monday. Mitch, thank you very much. Are you in Omaha by any chance?
No, I'm not.
Well, yeah, I know you want to be. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just said we got too much work to be doing right now to be going to Omaha.
Yeah, I know, and you want to get there again as the head coach of your program, and I'll get into that with A&M and Tennessee a little bit later on. So the news today about Bob Thompson and the $10 million gift to Baylor Athletics, NIL, men's basketball, baseball, and also a capital fund. Did you know this was coming?
Yeah. We've known it was coming for a while, and we're I'm very, very excited that it's been announced, and to give Bob Simpson, the recognition that he deserves for being such a fantastic supporter of Baylor and Baylor athletics, and so very, very excited about the announcement today.
So there was, I thought, about a year ago or some other time, I can't remember when, where there was some sort of NIL donation or gift. Is this separate from anything you've gotten before?
Yeah, this is a different deal, there's been work been done on this for quite some time. Last year during the summer, got a chance to go up to the Rangers and meet Mr. Simpson, visit with him, and talk to him about our program, all these things, and just what a special guy he is, and his love for this university. So, but Bob stepped up big time for our athletic department, and I'm so grateful that he's a big fan of Baylor baseball.
Well, yeah, and I said this earlier. This is not for you to have to respond to, but he was very heavily involved in a lot of things, Baylor, and then he kind of disappeared for a while. And it seemed like that with Scott Drew and men's basketball, and now what he's doing with you, that he's getting back more involved again. Is that kind of what you get to, the feeling?
Well, I don't know the whole history of all that. All I know is, like I said, he's a special guy.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to help, and he's just been incredibly generous to step up. And we're going to be using this money, as kind of a lead gift to do some facility improvements in our place and do some things that really can affect our program, be fun, good things for the fans, but also really good things for our players. And, we've got a big vision and big plans here, and Bob and this lead gift are something that's really going to help jumpstart that thing. And, we've got to go through the right protocols and things for everything to happen exactly. But, it'll have to be board certified and, board approved project, but these type of things sure do excite us, and it's a fun day.
Is this all facilities driven?
It'll be for us. I'm sure that's what it's going to be for us. There's I'm looking forward to working with everybody over there at Baylor on just using this money for us and for our portion of whatever that is. To use it to the best advantage of our program. And, there's a lot of good people over there that are ready to help us, and we're just looking forward to continuing to move the program forward.
I think when they made the decision with you as the head coach, in fact, I always go back to that morning. I was jogging. I saw you. I just did not realize you had a Baylor duffel bag or whatever it was, if you'll recall. But that was the day, in fact, that the announcement was being made. And I think there's no question even in my mind, despite a couple of rough years, that you're the guy. You're the right person to do this job. Why has it been so difficult?
Well, I appreciate it, David. I thank you for that. Those words of encouragement. College baseball is probably changing as much in the last 2 years as it's changed in the entire. In my 25, 30-year history of working in college athletics. Facilities are important, but man, the NIL thing has become so huge anymore. And it's just a process. We're at a private school. We're working with 11.7 scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
Got to stretch the dollars as far as you can and find the right kids and the right people, and then you add to it the NIL and transfer portal, and it's just a very, very hairy business at this point in time, and sometimes not always real clean. So,
yep.
You just got to just keep your nose down to the grindstone, keep working to recruit the right kids, develop the right kids, invest in the right kids, and this thing's gonna start turning for us. I really feel like it would have started to turn big time this year if we wouldn't have had the injuries that we had to deal with. But I love the kids that we have in our program, and they're bought in, and we're excited about where we're headed.
I don't know how you'll answer this, but when somebody else has contacted and you have lost some alphas right off the top, you lost some dudes that were really, really good, and everyone counts, especially in baseball where one or two players can make a huge difference. Have you ever seen, like, actual evidence of somebody tampering with one of your players? And if in fact you have, did you pick up the phone and call that coach, or is that just a waste of time?
Oh, I think you still pick up and call them, but you won't always get the right response.
Yeah.
You may let them know that you know, but it doesn't matter. It just is what it is. The advisors and the agents that sometimes are a part of this, fighting to try and get kids more, and bargaining one place against another, and it's pretty dirty out there at times, and that's just something that we want to try and stay away from, and stay away from having to even deal with those things. But I'm thankful that Baylor, the Baylor athletics administration and the Baylor fans or stakeholders, they care about Baylor baseball, and we're getting the support we need, and we're ready to continue to make steps forward. And it's just going to take a little time. It doesn't happen overnight unless you're just going to clean house and treat these kids like they're nothing. And it's not something that I'm interested in doing. We believe in who we've got, and we're going to keep working with them and help developing them.
What's more important, Mitch, recruiting players to join the program, or making sure you recruit the players that are in the program? Both of them.
You've got to keep the kids that are in your program, and you've got to keep developing them, and you've got to, it all comes back to serving your players. I've said forever, and I will always say it. It's always about the players. It'll always be about the players for me. And for us as coaches, we have to serve our players. And if we do a great job of serving our players and helping them grow and helping them continue to develop, we'll keep them around, and we're doing a good job of that right now, and we're excited about where we're going. But you can't build if you can't keep kids around long enough to develop, and you just can't keep refilling through the portal on a year in, year out basis. You've got to have your group of guys that are staying with you and believing in you, and thankfully we've got a bunch of those guys in our program right now.
When somebody tells you they're leaving the program, do they tell you face to face? Do they text you, or you hear about it from a third party?
Oh, usually they'll get on the phone and call you or text you. So,
yeah.
It's not always a face-to-face business there.
No. So obviously it's been a tough start, as I mentioned. I know there's no question in my mind that you're the right person to lead Baylor baseball. And I don't say that because I like you. I say that because I know your baseball acumen and all that. But obviously it's a win game. You got to win. And now you get this. The facility's upgraded. We'll get into whatever's going to be upgraded in a minute. Do you feel any heat right now that you better win?
No, I don't feel any heat, but there's nobody who wants to win more than I do. And us and those players, we want to win as much as anybody in the world. So we're making the progress, and it's just been difficult that we couldn't show it all this spring.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were in the process of really showing that we were making a step and taking a big step, and then and another injury hit, and all of a sudden we're kind of thrown under the bus. So we're just going to have to keep battling through the adversity that we faced so far, and we'll do that. We've got great support, and I'm confident too, and I appreciate those words of encouragement from you. We're going to get this thing going, so just hang on, it's coming.
Mitch, you're obviously, the pitching staff has a lot of work to be done. Is it fair to say that your position players, your batting order, et cetera, is in much better shape than your pitching staff?
Well, we return a bunch of guys for sure next year. We'll be returning a bunch of guys that have a lot of experience in the lineup, no question. we're looking to make a big jump on the mound. There's lots of different hurdles that we have to jump through and all that stuff. We're dealing with the draft and Major League Baseball trying to come and take your players.
Mm-hmm.
There's just all these things that you have to kind of jump through and navigate through and trying to get the right guys here. So we're looking for a big step from our pitching staff. We've got some key people returning on the mound that'll be big-time parts for this thing for us, but we're looking forward to adding something to it right now and working hard as we can to get that done.
All right, on the facilities and the gift from Bob Simpson, what are you going to do? What are some of the plans? I know it has to be approved and all of that. It's like a coaching hire based on school board approval, whatever, but what are some of the ideas or the dream of what you'd like to see happen?
Well, the vision is that the Baylor ballpark is still an unbelievable facility. There's
Absolutely.
No question.
Yep.
For the fans and for everything that touches the fans, it's still an incredible place 25 years later. But we've got to make some adjustments and improve our player development facilities. Right now we don't have indoor area to go hit that's climate controlled with heat and air conditioning. It's tough to hit the metal building at 105, 10 degrees. It's tough to get your work in. Just like it is when it's 30 degrees too. So we need a player development facility that'll provide us with indoor hitting areas and development areas there. We want to continue to improve our pitching lab and our pitching area. We've got plans for a big time locker room upgrade. Everything that would touch the players, that's what we want to continue to spend money on and to fix. At the same time, we want to provide some new club seating, some new big time seating, and we've got plans to wrap this thing all the way around the left field foul pole and have a seating area above the left field foul pole, kind of like the Crawford boxes in Houston, and I think there's big time plans and a big time vision for it, and as soon as we can continue to add a couple more people that are willing to help us. We've got some guys on the line right now that are really excited about it as well, and we're getting close.
So in that, all of what you're being said, the club boxes and all, the better seats, going to cost money. People will be able to contribute to that. That's great. Plus, it just looks good. You're right. Baylor Ballpark is still a gem if you walk in, and no matter what you're doing or how long you've been there. When can it start? I know you got to get approval. I keep saying that. I understand. But when can they start putting things in the ground or start changing?
Well, we're working on plans. We've got some plans right now that we're working on. I don't have any idea when it'll be approved to do that, but hopefully sooner rather than later. We're pushing. We're working. The administration's behind us, and this lead gift from Bob is that we can definitely build around, and it's something that we're so grateful for.
A lot of people have talked about the new Big 12 with the 4 incoming schools out of the Pac-12. How much does that affect the power struggle, or power structure, in your opinion? I know Arizona's had ASU's got a great tradition. I don't know how much they've really been able to do much with that, but how much does that help the conference? I know you're losing a couple of alphas in Oklahoma and Texas, but how about the incoming players?
Yeah, no, I think the conference is going to continue to still be incredibly viable. A conference that's going to be one of the power conferences in the country. The thing we do lose Texas and Oklahoma, but at the same time we're adding Arizona State, we're adding Utah. Utah had a phenomenal year this year. Arizona and Arizona State combined have won 9 national championships.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like we're chopped liver in this league. I can promise you that. Virtually everybody in the league has continued to improve, continued to develop facilities, continue to work hard at really developing their programs. And baseball's important in the Big 12. So, it's going to continue to be a power conference, and one that has to be reckoned with on a year in, year out basis.
And Colorado does not have a baseball team. They have a club, right? Like a club team?
Yeah, Colorado and Iowa State do not have a team.
Yeah. All right, so if you don't mind asking you, Texas A&M and Tennessee open up tomorrow, best of 3. They have been probably as good as anybody from start to finish. Your thoughts about Jim Schlossnagle was at TCU, done a great job at A&M. Those two, like a collision course, it seemed like for a long, long time.
Yeah, no, they're both really talented clubs, and you know, Omaha has once again been a phenomenal venue for the College World Series. But you know, I mean, I think they're really talented teams, and you know, they'll hook it up. And good luck to them all. I'm sure not going to be picking on anybody or telling you anything like that. I'm not putting a feather in any Aggie's hat, and I'm not going to crush them either. So yeah. we're gonna keep our nose to the grindstone and keep working so we can get back there.
So how much do you get a chance to do anything but try to find talent for your team right now?
Not a whole lot. That's what's going on all day, every day. That's where we're at. We're either on the road recruiting, seeing games, or we're scouring that portal and making phone calls and chasing down kids and making offers and trying to bring kids on a visit. The summertime is probably the busiest time of the year. And thankfully, I've got a really good staff of guys who want to work hard and get after it. And we're all in this thing together.
New pitching coach too, right?
New pitching coach. We're excited to have Sean Snedeker with us. Going to bring a lot of experience. You know, a guy that spent 13 years in professional baseball, coaching and developing talent, but has also been, you know, a pitching coach for 18 years at the Division I level. And if you took his 18 years of his team ERAs and added them up, you'd end up with probably an average of about a 4.0 ERA. And, you know, we're really excited to have him here. You know, I'm excited for him and Brian Furlong, our director of pitching development and player development, to just really team up here and work together. You know, work together as a group to just help our pitching become dominant. You know, and help each one of our pitchers continue to develop their own abilities and help us be able to win ball games on the mound. It'll be a big step for us this next year, and we're excited for those two guys to be back and to be working together like that.
Mitch, go get it done. Thank you very much for your time. I know you're grinding, and that's what you've always done. So good luck as you compile the talent, and also good luck with the facilities as they move forward as well. We appreciate your time. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. And once again, man, Bob Simpson, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much. Bob Simpson, a $10 million gift, Baylor men's basketball, Baylor baseball, and then also with one of the funds or whatever that they have. So good to have Mitch on. You could tell he's got to go find some players, and it's been kind of an uphill climb, I believe. And I asked him the question earlier that you may not have gotten, is this a different NIL or a different gift for baseball than about a year ago? I don't know when it was, but I thought it was about a year ago or somewhere. And he said yes, so that they did get, and they've got some Max Muncy, Bradford with the Rangers. Of course, they've had all sorts of pitching issues. The pitching has not been the problem with the Rangers. They can't score any runs. Yeah. But Cody Bradford even told me one time that he was going to do everything he can to try to help put together some kind of help NIL-wise. Muncy. What was this? Oh, my goodness, the outfielder, David Murphy, among some others. So there we are with that. So our guest today, Pat Smith, three-man front, WJOX in Birmingham, on the baseball game last night at Rickwood Field. Grayson Grundhafer, and as he's talking to us, Baylor gets a commitment. Rob Gray on CycloneFanatic.com on Iowa State. Mark Daniels, voice of UCF. Joseph Duarte and the Chris Pezman, he's gone. And maybe that Jeremiah Dickey could be one of those that's more than just on the radar. Former Baylor and University of Houston administration, athletic administration, and guy that very close to Mack Rhodes. And then Mitch Thompson, Baylor baseball on the gift. You could hear him say that. I think it's great Bob Thompson's more involved. I think he has been. I just think it's been more just kind of in a way, just a little distant. For some reason, and I don't like to throw things out that just like if they stick. You know me, I'm not a clicks and views guy, but I think he's been doing some things with Baylor. But it's nice to see that baseball now is a part of that as well. Hell, he's right there. He's been a part of the Rangers.
Yeah.
World Series champion. They're not playing like one now. That is for sure. All right, thanks to you. Paul and Craig back on Monday. Thanks to everybody that jumped in a little bit late with us today with the power outage. We got back on, actually. We never did get on, but we got on about 3:25 and we thought maybe another show might be down the drain, but we were able to get in all the guests that we had, so that's great. Please, if you don't mind, hit the like and subscribe button. Please, if you don't mind, spread the word to somebody else you know that loves college football. And also, 365 Sports tonight. Emory working on that, the replay tonight with 4 segments on the local CW. We're back at it again. Let's see. Monday, Brent Brennan. I think it's Monday. Brent Brennan, the head coach at Arizona, will be a guest on our show. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Thanks to those of you in the chat room. You're like family, man. And then all of you that listen or watch or look at the replays later on YouTube that we don't ever really get to hear from. Where are we right now, Garrett? 48.6?
Yep, well over 48.
48.8 is our subscriber base, and hopefully by perhaps sometime next week, Paul does a keg stand. That'll be interesting.
That'd be funny.
Garrett Ross, thank you. Emory Winter, thank you. Intern James, thank you. Thank you all. I'm David Smoke. Have a great weekend, and good night on 365 Sports.